provided a SAP will be upgraded. And when you upgrade, it's not mandatory that every program will be replaced. Depending on the changes, SAP could still be using the old applications only in the new system also. For example, if you look at this MM01 transaction, it's available in 5.0 system, 4.0 system, 6.0 system. So it's the same. They haven't made any changes. But there could be few other programs for which they have made changes. So those would be lost. And
what about the functional changes? Previously, you took one example.
The data would not be affected when you upgrade. So whatever customizing you are doing to your system, those are typically saved as some, they are updated in some tables, the data. So that won't be affected. Only the repository objects, the programs, table definitions, those get affected with the upgrade. The data that you have in your system won't be affected.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Subha Reddy, you have a question?
Yeah, what about the extensions? What are the problem?
I'll be coming to that. I'll just share this slide. So what type of developments that you do as an ABAP consultant? If you have looked at any job postings for ABAP, you would typically see good knowledge in RICF objects. So by RICF, they means reports, interfaces, conversions, extensions, and forms. So anything that you develop in your SAP system, you can categorize that into one of these. Either you'll be developing reports or interface programs or conversion programs or extensions or forms. So we'll see these reports. For example, you want to see all the bank transactions that you have done in last month. What you'll do, you'll log into your bank website and then open the statement link, enter the date range for which you want to see the statement, click submit. That application will fetch all the transactions between the given date range and show some output. That's a typical report. Whenever you do a transaction, the bank stores that information in their database, and this application will query that database, fetch the data as per your date range, and show you the output. Right? So that's a typical report. So reports typically provide read-only access to the database. Right? When you're looking at the bank statement, you can only see the data that is saved. You cannot create a new transaction. You cannot change the data that you see. It's a read-only access to your data. So for example, let's say we have a warehouse where I store all the stock, and again, when we maintain this inventory, we again follow different process. One process is SOI, supplier owned inventory, wherein I don't buy everything that I want to sell. My supplier will give me the goods. For example, if I'm an electronics showroom, I'm selling washing machines, color televisions, then I don't need to buy all these washing machines and color televisions beforehand and then sell it to my customer. If I'm following this SOI process, what I'll do is the supplier who's supplying me this washing machine or the color television, he would keep his stock in my warehouse, and he would say, whenever you sell this to your customer, at that time you can pay me for that. Till that time, the inventory is owned by me. You don't own it, but I can keep it in your warehouse so that the moment you get an order, you can ship it to your customers. Now, the problem with this type of arrangement is, let's say there are 5 different showrooms in the city. I'm doing very less business. I'm hardly selling 1 washing machine per month, but other showrooms are selling 30 washing machines per month, and the same supplier is supplying these washing machines to everyone. In that case, I have some 10 washing machines lying in my warehouse which I'm not able to sell, but other showrooms, they're actually falling short of washing machines. Whatever the supplier has given them, they've exhausted that and they want more washing machines. And here in my warehouse, there are 10 lying idle. So it would be better if the supplier can move these washing machines from my warehouse to another warehouse for another vendor or another showroom. It would make more sense, right? So the supplier says, because of this problem, I'll keep this washing machine in your warehouse, but you pay me when you sell it to your customer or after 30 days, whichever is earlier. Within 30 days, if you're selling it, good, you can pay me. If you're not selling it for 30 days, I'll assume that it is sold, so you have to pay me. So this becomes billable if you reach 30 days from the day you received it in your warehouse. Now, as a warehouse manager, I need to know the age of my inventory so that I can take a decision whether I should return this back to the supplier or I should pay the supplier, because I'll be billable if I cross 30 days, right? So whenever I receive the stock in my warehouse, I'll be updating in the system the date in which I received that particular washing machine, right? So my user says, I want you to create one report where you can check all the stock available in the warehouse and calculate the age. From you can simply subtract the current date from the date we received. That gives you the number of days since we received that particular product in our warehouse. So just show me that age of the inventory. So since all this data is already there in the database, I can simply create one report wherein I can use the data stored in the database, apply the logic of calculating the age in my report, and then show it to the user saying that this particular washing machine we received 20 days back, this one we received 15 days back. So based on that, my manager can take a decision whether to pay the supplier or return it to the supplier, right? So you create such type of reports in SAP. So you can create simple reports to very complex reports in ABAP. So we have something called classical reports. We have ALV reports. Again, the reports can be normal reports or interactive reports. So you can create an interactive classical report, an interactive ALV report. So you can create from very simple report to very complex reports in ABAP. And reports are something which you'll be working on very frequently. So reports and forms are two developments you'll be working on very frequently as an ABAP consultant. 80% of the times you'll be creating either reports or forms as an ABAP consultant. So these are very frequent developments that we'll get to work on. So these are your typical report developments where all the data is already there in the database. We are extracting that data to make some sense out of that data. Then interface programs. What are these interface programs? Anything you want to push from your SAP system to an external system, or you're receiving some data from the external system and you want to post that data in your SAP system. So for that requirements, we need to create these interface programs. We have outbound interface, inbound interface programs. In inbound interface, you are receiving the data from the external system, and you'll be creating a program to use that data and post the information in your SAP system. For example, let's say I gave you one example that I'm running a business where I'm manufacturing these laptop computers, right? To procure the raw material, I need to place an order with Intel to procure the motherboards, right? So I can create one purchase order and send it to Intel. And let's say Intel bills me, they'll send me one invoice, billing document, and Intel will create this billing document and send it to me. So I'm exchanging some data between my system and my business partner system. In this case, Intel is the business partner. So how do we exchange this data? If Intel is sending me an invoice, then one way is take a printout of the invoice and courier it to me. But that's a very time-consuming process. It takes a lot of time, right? You waste 1 or 2 days in that process. All these companies exchange data through an electronic medium. We have something called EDI for that. So what we do is, the moment Intel sends me this information, they can directly pass this data to my system. And in my system, it will trigger one program which will use this data and create a billing document in my system using that data. So that is an inbound interface program where you are receiving data from an Excel system, and using that data, you're creating something in your SAP system. That's a typical inbound interface program. And you are sending a purchase order to Intel. Then I'll create this purchase order in the system, and I can run one program which will extract this purchase order data and push it to the other system, my business partner system. That's an outbound interface program. So any data you want to exchange between your SAP system and an external system, we develop these interface programs. So we have normal interface programs where you simply extract data from the system and store it in one folder in the application server. Now what is application server? You'll understand tomorrow. Or else we have this BAPIs, business APIs. How many of you understand what is an API? You can raise your hand. What is an API? Tatni? Padma Kumar? Padma Kumar?
Yes, application programming interface.
So what exactly that means?
Hello? Basically, it is a function prototype using which you can call functions and execute.
Okay. For example, let's say I'm creating my website. In my website, I want to provide some search functionality for my users. So whoever visits my website, they want to do a Google search. They want to search for something. So I want to, like Google, I also want to provide some search functionality. For that, either I can maintain all the algorithm for this search in my server. So whenever you search for something, it executes this program code and tries to find the matching entries for your search and show you that. So I can do that myself. Or else I can simply leverage my whatever is provided by Google. So if Google is providing an API wherein the moment you type a search query in my website and click on search, I can call this API provided by Google, send my search query to this API. This API will execute in the Google server and it will fetch all the relevant results for that query and give back me the result, which I can simply display in my website. So all the searching is done by the Google server. But obviously you cannot access the Google server directly. So Google has to provide something called as a API, application programming interface. So using that interface, I can exchange some data between my server and the Google server. So if two different systems want to interact with each other, then there should be some way to do that, and these are typically provided as APIs. So in SAP also we provide this API. So if one external system wants to do something in your SAP system, then we provide this, we develop these APIs, we call them BAPIs, business APIs, and these APIs are typically implemented as function modules in SAP. So those are also you will be developing as interface program. So all this comes under interface program. So we'll be learning all that, how to develop inbound interface, outbound interface, how to develop these BAPIs. So all these things we'll be learning in this course. Then we have these conversion programs. Let's say you are implementing the SAP system for the first time, and it doesn't mean that this is the first time you're using a system. You could be using some other system before implementing SAP, and you have already maintained all the data about your materials, about your customers, about your vendors. So all this data is already stored in your existing system. Now when you implement SAP for the first time, this data that you have in your legacy system should be moved to your SAP system, right? You cannot simply copy and paste the data. There should be some validations that should be performed. The data should be converted to SAP format. For example, in SAP, the material number is an alphanumeric value with up to 18 characters. In your legacy system, you could be using something else, right? So this has to be converted to a format that is used in SAP. So for those requirements, we'll be using these conversion programs. So we have something called LSMW, which is a tool provided by SAP, using which you can easily push data from your legacy system to your SAP system. Or we can develop these BDC programs. All these are your conversion programs. So we'll also be learning all that, how to develop these conversion programs, BDCs, LSMWs, and all those things. So that's your conversion programs. Then extensions, all the enhancements that you do, modifications that you do, the new developments that you do in the system, all this comes under extensions. So where you are extending the standard SAP functionality, right? So that comes under extension. So everything comes under this extension. And there are a few third-party applications also which you can integrate with your SAP system. So you can also install those third-party applications to integrate. For example, let's say you want to go in the field and take orders. Obviously, you cannot carry your laptop and log into the SAP system and take the order directly, right? So my sales guy, he'll be carrying one handheld device to capture the orders. So if you have seen this Pepsi or Coke salespeople, they'll go to each shop and take the orders. So they'll be capturing that information in one handheld device. So they'll take all the orders in one handheld device, and once they come back to office, all they have to do is connect that handheld device to the system, and all the data would be posted in your SAP system.